Some churches were not built for easy visitors. They were raised where the road becomes narrow, where the air grows thin, where clouds move across the mountain like a veil, and where every step toward the altar feels like a test of faith. On these high peaks, a church bell does not disappear into traffic or city noise. It travels through wind, snow, stone, and silence, calling the human soul to rise above the world below. These sacred places are not remembered only for their walls, towers, paintings, or altars. They are unforgettable because of where they stand. They were built where nature feels immense and human life feels small, yet faith still dares to leave a mark. From the dramatic Alps of Europe to the sacred heights of the Andes, each church on this list tells a story of sacrifice, pilgrimage, devotion, and the deep Catholic desire to meet God not only in comfort, but also in the difficult climb. In this journey, we will explore the top 5 most beautiful churches on the highest mountain peaks in the world. One watches over valleys, one rises above a great city, one stands near snow and glaciers, and one seems almost suspended between earth and heaven. Stay with us until the end, and if you love discovering the beauty, history, and living spirit of Catholic culture around the world, subscribe to the channel and join us on this unforgettable mountain pilgrimage. Number 5. Monte Lussari Sanctuary, Italy. The first stop does not begin with a grand avenue, a marble square, or the sound of traffic outside a famous cathedral. It begins with a mountain rising over the borderlands of northeastern Italy, where the forests climb toward the Julian Alps, and the village at the top looks almost too small to survive the wind. Monte Lussari does not try to impress visitors with size. It captures them with atmosphere. The roofs are low, the streets are narrow, and the sanctuary seems to stand there like a white flame above the valley. At about 1,789 meters above sea level, the sanctuary of the Madonna of Lussari feels less like a building placed on a peak and more like a secret kept by the mountain. Pilgrims come from the Italian, Slavic, and German-speaking worlds, because this is not only a scenic place, it is a meeting point of nations, languages, memories, and prayers. Long before cameras arrived, people climbed here carrying petitions, grief, gratitude, and hope. The climb was not decoration around the faith. The climb was part of the faith. The oldest tradition connected to Monte Lussari reaches back to the 14th century, when a shepherd was said to have found his sheep kneeling near a small image of the Virgin Mary and the child Jesus. The story is simple, but that simplicity gives the place its force. No palace, no royal command, no dramatic proclamation in a capital city. Just a mountain, a shepherd, a hidden image, and the strange sense that heaven had chosen a lonely height as a place of encounter. There is a quiet tension in this sanctuary. During winter, snow can cover the village until the church looks almost swallowed by white silence. During summer, the same peak opens into bright alpine air with valleys stretching below and ridges rising in the distance. Visitors can arrive by cable car, but the old pilgrim spirit is still felt in the paths leading upward. Step by step, the noise of the lower world fades. The mountain does not rush the soul, it strips it down. That is where Monte Lussari becomes unforgettable. It is beautiful, but not in a polished or predictable way. Its beauty comes from contrast. A small sanctuary against vast mountains, a Marian devotion above a rugged landscape, a peaceful church standing where cultures once met with fear, conflict, and distance. Here, faith becomes a bridge. The sanctuary does not belong to only one people. It speaks through the shared language of prayer. For a viewer seeing Monte Lussari for the first time, the strongest image is not only the church itself, it is the feeling of arrival. After the climb, after the cold air, after the final turn toward the summit village, the sanctuary appears as if it has been waiting above the clouds. It reminds us that some sacred places are powerful because they are hard to reach. The mountain asks for effort before it gives beauty, and that effort changes the way beauty is received. Monte Lussari earns its place at number 5 because it gives this journey its opening heartbeat. It is not the highest sanctuary on the list, but it reveals the central truth behind all 5 mountain churches. When faith rises above comfort, beauty becomes more than something to admire. It becomes something to approach with humility. Number 4. Salvin, Kirchlein, Austria. The mountain does not announce the church with noise. It reveals it slowly, after the climb, after the cable car rises above the green slopes, after the valleys begin to fall away, and the wind becomes the loudest voice on the summit. On Hohe Salve, in Tyrol, Austria, Salvin Kirchlein stands like a small act of defiance against height, weather, and time. It is not a cathedral built to command a city. It is a pilgrimage church placed where the sky feels close enough to touch. At 1,829 meters above sea level, Salvin Kirchlein is known as the highest pilgrimage church in Austria. Its scale is modest, but its position gives it a force that no ornament can imitate. The church is dedicated to Saint John the Baptist, the saint of the wilderness, the voice crying out beyond the comfort of ordinary life. That dedication feels almost perfect here, because everything around the church speaks of exposure, open air, sudden storms, sweeping alpine views, and the feeling that the mountain has stripped the world down to its essentials. The story of Salvin Kirchlein carries scars. It was first mentioned in written records in 1589, and the first Holy Mass was celebrated there in 1617. But this church did not simply remain untouched above the valley. Lightning struck, damage came, rebuilding followed. The summit that gave the church its beauty also tested its survival. In 1640, a devastating lightning strike destroyed the building, and by 1643, it had been rebuilt. That history gives the little church a different emotional weight. It is not only a pretty chapel on a scenic peak, it is a witness that had to endure the very mountain that made it sacred. Inside, the mood changes. Outside, the Alps stretch in every direction. Inside, the eye is drawn toward the early Baroque high altar from 1666, with the baptism of Jesus at its center and the figures of St. John the Baptist and St. Bartholomew standing in sacred memory. The contrast is powerful. The world outside feels limitless. The altar inside feels focused. A pilgrim moves from the vastness of creation into the intimacy of worship, from panoramic wonder into prayer. There is also a human tenderness in this place. People do not climb Hohe Salve only to measure altitude. They come because a small church on a summit can speak to wounds that large spaces sometimes cannot reach. A farmer giving thanks, a family arriving after a long walk, a traveler stepping out of the wind for a moment of silence. The mountain may offer the view, but the church gives the view a soul. The final image of Salvin Kirchlein stays with the viewer quietly. A small pilgrimage church resting on the summit of Hohe Salve, its walls touched by mountain light, its tower standing against the wide Tyrolean sky. Around it, the grass bends with the wind, the valleys open far below, and the silence feels almost sacred before anyone even steps inside. There is no need for grandeur here. The mountain gives the scale, the altar gives the stillness, and the church becomes the place where both meet. Long after the view fades, Salvin Kirchlein remains in the mind as a gentle reminder that some of the world's most beautiful churches do not conquer the landscape. They belong to it. Number 3. Wendelstein Church, Germany. High above the green valleys of Bavaria, Wendelstein Church appears like a quiet jewel, resting among stone, wind, and open sky. It does not need a crowded square or a massive city skyline to feel unforgettable. Its beauty comes from the way it stands on the mountain, small in size, but surrounded by a landscape so wide and bright that the whole scene feels lifted beyond ordinary life. The journey toward Wendelstein already feels like part of the experience. As the path rises, the villages below begin to shrink, the forests fall behind, and the sharp lines of the Bavarian Alps come closer. Near the summit of Mount Wendelstein, the church comes into view with its steep roof, simple walls, and graceful tower. It looks peaceful, but not weak. It looks humble, but not hidden. Against the rocks and the alpine light, the church seems to belong exactly where it stands. Built in the late 19th century and consecrated in 1890, Wendelstein Church was dedicated to the Blessed Mother of God, Mary, Patrona Bavariae. That dedication gives the place a warm Catholic identity. The mountain may feel vast and powerful, but the church softens the landscape with a sense of prayer. It is the kind of place where a visitor can step away from the wind, enter the quiet interior, and feel the sudden change from panoramic beauty to sacred stillness. One of the most memorable details in the story of Wendelstein is the gold-plated cross placed on its tower. It weighed 85 pounds, and Max Kleiber, the man who helped bring the church to life, carried it up the mountain himself. The image is simple, but deeply visual. A man climbing through the alpine air with a cross meant to shine above the rocks. That moment gives the church more than history. It gives it a human touch, as if the beauty of the place was carried upward by devotion, effort, and love. From the outside, Wendelstein Church has a rare visual power. The building is not large, yet the mountain enlarges everything around it. The roof cuts cleanly against the sky. The stone paths lead the eye toward the door. Clouds move behind the tower, and when sunlight breaks across the summit, the church can look almost suspended between earth and heaven. For a video, this is the kind of scene that does not need exaggeration. A slow camera movement, the sound of wind, the distant view of Bavaria, and the church standing quietly above it all are already enough. Inside, the feeling becomes more intimate. The world outside is huge, but the space of prayer is close and personal. That contrast is part of its charm. Wendelstein is not beautiful because it overwhelms the viewer. It is beautiful because it gathers the mountain's silence into a small sacred room. The visitor arrives with the vast Alps in their eyes, then meets an altar that brings everything back to focus. Wendelstein Church holds number 3 because it brings a different kind of beauty into this mountain journey. Monte Lussari gave us the feeling of a Marian sanctuary above cultures. Salvin Kirchlein showed us a summit church shaped by Tyrolean faith and alpine endurance. Wendelstein now adds something warmer and more human. When the valley felt far away, faith answered by placing an altar closer to the sky. On this Bavarian ridge, beauty is not only found in the view, it is found in the peaceful meeting between mountain, architecture, and prayer. Number 2. Monserrate Sanctuary, Colombia. Before the church appears, the city arrives first. Bogotá spreads beneath the mountain in every direction. A vast movement of streets, towers, rooftops, traffic, markets, offices, schools, and lives that never fully pause. Then the camera rises toward the eastern hills, and suddenly the noise below begins to shrink. Above that restless capital stands Monserrate Sanctuary, white against the green slope, lifted high enough to turn an entire city into a single breathtaking view. Monserrate is not beautiful in the same way as a remote alpine church hidden among snow and stone. Its beauty is more dramatic because it lives beside tension. Below it, Bogotá moves with the speed of modern life. Above it, the sanctuary waits in stillness. The contrast gives the whole scene its power. A church on a mountain, a capital city under its gaze, and thousands of people drawn upward, not only for scenery, but for prayer. At about 3,152 meters above sea level, the Sanctuary of the Fallen Lord of Monserrate stands as one of the most recognizable Catholic landmarks in Colombia. Reaching it can happen in different ways. Some visitors take the cable car, others ride the funicular. But many pilgrims still choose the steep path upward, letting the climb shape the experience before they ever reach the doors. The ascent becomes part of the devotion, breath by breath, step by step. The city grows smaller, and the sanctuary grows closer. The devotion at Monserrate is centered on the fallen Lord, an image of Christ deeply loved by generations of faithful. People come with stories that are not visible from the outside. A mother asking for healing. A worker carrying worries he cannot explain. A young couple standing quietly before the altar. An elderly pilgrim pausing on the path, then continuing upward with patience. The mountain receives all of them, and the church gives their journey a destination. Visually, Monserrate is unforgettable. The white church rises above dense green vegetation, with red-tiled roofs and a tower that catches the light from far across the city. On clear days, Bogotá stretches beneath it like a living map. At sunset, the sanctuary can appear almost weightless, caught between the darkening mountain and the glowing city below. It is a place where the camera can move from the faces of pilgrims to the skyline, from candles inside the church to clouds drifting over the hills, and every frame still belongs to the same story. Inside the sanctuary, the scale changes again. Outside, the view is immense. Inside, the focus narrows to Christ, prayer, silence, and the petitions carried up the mountain. That shift is what gives Monserrate its emotional pull. The visitor comes for the panorama, but the sanctuary asks for something deeper than looking. It invites the heart to slow down. It turns altitude into attention. By the time the camera pulls back from Monserrate, the sanctuary no longer feels like a distant landmark above Bogotá. It feels like a quiet heartbeat above the city. Below, life keeps moving through streets, homes, offices, and crowded avenues. Above, the white church remains still, holding the prayers of those who climb toward it. Among the most beautiful mountain churches in the world, Monserrate leaves a powerful image behind, a great city beneath the clouds, and a sacred place high above it, reminding every soul that even in the rush of modern life, there is always a higher place to look toward. Number 1. Sanctuary of the Lord of Qoyllur, Rit'i, Peru. The final stop does not feel like a quiet arrival. It feels like the mountain has awakened. In the high Andes of Peru, thousands of pilgrims move through cold air, music, candles, banners, dust, prayer, and color. The path is not framed by polished streets or elegant gardens. It runs towards snow-covered peaks, beneath a sky so wide that every voice seems to rise into it. At the center of that immense landscape stands the sanctuary of the Lord of Qoyllur, Rit'i, one of the most extraordinary sacred places in the Catholic world. Here, beauty does not come gently. It comes with movement. Pilgrims walk for hours through the mountain air, some carrying crosses, some moving in groups, some wrapped in traditional clothing that turns the landscape into a living procession. The sanctuary sits in the remote Sinakara Valley, beneath the presence of the Andes, where the altitude can rise to around 4,600 to more than 4,700 meters above sea level. At that height, even breathing becomes part of the experience. The body slows down, the senses sharpen, and the journey toward the church feels different from any ordinary visit. Qoyllur Rit'i means snow star, and the name already carries the mystery of the place. The devotion is centered on Christ, the Lord of Qoyllur Rit'i, but the atmosphere around the sanctuary is shaped by the deep memory of the Andean world. Catholic faith, mountain landscape, indigenous music, processions, and sacred dance meet in a way that feels unlike anywhere else on this list. The church is not standing apart from the people. It is surrounded by them, carried by them, approached through their songs, their steps, their offerings, and their longing. For the camera, this place is overwhelming. A close shot can catch a candle flame trembling in the cold. A wide shot can reveal pilgrims spread across the valley like a river of faith. The white sanctuary appears against the harsh beauty of the mountains, not as a palace, but as a destination. Around it, dancers move in rhythm, flags lift in the wind, and faces marked by exhaustion still look upward with devotion. Every frame feels alive because the beauty here is not only architectural, it is human, physical, and spiritual at the same time. The strongest emotion of Qoyllur Rit'i is contrast. The mountain is severe, but the pilgrimage is full of color. The air is thin, but the prayers feel abundant. The sanctuary is remote, but it becomes the center of a vast gathering. Snow, stone, music, silence, and worship, all pressed together until the viewer understands that this is not simply a church in a beautiful location. It is a sacred world built around a climb. Inside this Andean setting, the meaning of a mountain church reaches its highest point. Earlier in the journey, beauty appeared through quiet villages, alpine chapels, summit views, and a sanctuary above a great city. Here, beauty becomes almost elemental. It is the beauty of people willing to rise into the cold because faith has called them higher, It is the beauty of a church surrounded not by comfort, but by devotion strong enough to fill the mountain itself. As the scene fades from Qoyllur Rit'i, the final image remains unforgettable. Pilgrims beneath the snow peaks, candles glowing in the dark, music moving through the valley, and a sanctuary standing high in the Andes like a meeting place between earth and heaven. Among the most beautiful churches and sanctuaries on the highest mountain peaks in the world, this place leaves the deepest impression because it does not only show us sacred beauty, it lets us feel the climb, the breath, the prayer, and the living heart of faith at the edge of the sky. From the quiet slopes of Monte Lussari to the living pilgrimage of Qoyllur Rit'i, these 5 mountain churches remind us that sacred beauty is not always found in the easiest places to reach. Sometimes it waits above the clouds, beside stone paths, under snow peaks, or high over a city that never stops moving. Each church on this journey gives us a different image of faith: gentle, patient, human, breathtaking, and lifted toward heaven. More than architecture, these places reveal a longing that has followed believers for centuries. The longing to climb higher, to leave the noise behind, to find silence, and to meet God in a place where the world feels wider and the soul feels smaller in the best possible way. Whether standing in the Alps or the Andes, these churches show that when faith rises above comfort, beauty becomes unforgettable. Which of these mountain churches touched you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love discovering the beauty, history, and living spirit of Catholic culture around the world, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you will not miss our next journey into the wonders of the Catholic faith.